Good evening. Today we are going to look at the radius. And the radius is the shorter and lateral bone of the forearm. It has three parts. It has the upper end, it has the shaft, and it has the lower end. The upper end of the radius, you see the head of the radius being articulating with the capitulum of the humerus, and it is somehow disc shaped. Then you also distally you appreciate a constricted part of the radius, which is the neck of the radius. Then on the medial side, there is a tuberosity called the radial tuberosity. And this radial tuberosity is for insertion of the tendon of biceps brachii. That is this side. Then the shaft itself, it has a convexity laterally, and it also has its own it has its borders. It has an anterior border which starts from the lower part of the radial tuberosity and curves downwards. Then it also has a medial border which is also referred to as the interosseous border. So, and it also has what is called the posterior border of this radius. Then aside these borders, we will also appreciate the surfaces on the shaft of the radius. We have the anterior surface, we have the lateral surface, and we have the posterior surface of the radius. Then before we now go down to the lower end of the radius. The lower end of this radius, on its most lateral part, you see a projected area called the styloid process. And aside that, you see that the inferior surface, which is the most distal surface, has impressions. And these impressions are for the articulation with the carpal bones. And on the most lateral part is triangular in shape, and that is for that it makes articulation with the most lateral and the proximal carpal bone called the scaphoid. After that, you now see a quadrangular shaped impression for another bone called the lunate. So these are the uh, the architecture or the shape of the radius. Then we look at the muscle attachments. Some muscles take origin from the radius, while some other muscles insert on the radius. So for those that take origin from the radius, like if you look at the red markings, you will see them. There are four of them: one on two on the anterior surface, then one, two on the posterior surface. The two on the anterior surface, like this one here, on the oblique line of the anterior surface of the radius, we'll see the name is the lateral head or the radial head of flexor digitorum superficialis. Then moving distally, we will also see a broad marking here, which is called the flexor pollicis longus. Let me take it again. You have this as what? The radial head of flexor digitorum superficialis. You have this as the flexor pollicis longus. Then going on the posterior surface, we have the first marking for the origin of abductor pollicis longus. Then going down again, you have the extensor pollicis brevis. Then we now have um, um, we have the blue markings, and these blue markings are for the insertion of five muscles on the radius. You can see the first one. This is the second one. This one below is the third, and this tiny one here is the last. So you have one, two, okay, for the bicipital, then the third, the fourth, and the fifth. This one on the lateral surface of the radius is called this for the insertion of the supinator. So, and followed by that, you go distally, you have the insertion of pronator teres, and after that, you have the area on the by the radial tuberosity for the biceps brachii. Then going distally now, you have this broad area for the pronator quadratus. And at the base of the styloid process, the radial styloid process, we have the brachioradialis. So these are the muscles that originate and insert on the radial bone. So the next thing we'll look at is the times of ossification. We have that the radius, the shaft of the radius, starts its ossification at the 8th week of intrauterine life, while the lower end will start its secondary ossification at 1 year, and it fuses completely with the shaft at the age of 16 years. So while the upper end of this radius, it starts its own ossification at the fourth or fifth year, and fuses completely at the 16th year with the shaft of the radius. Then aside that, we'll look at fractures that are common with the radius. We'll look at the fracture. Sometimes it happens at the shaft, and sometimes it affects both the radius and the ulna. Then other cases of fracture takes place at the distal end, and that fracture is referred to as the Colles fracture. And it depends on the area it goes. If it goes distally, it is the Colles fracture. While when it comes anteriorly, it becomes the Smith fracture. So I guess I've been understood, and that is the much I can take for this lecture. Thank you so much.